So, we're going to be trying to paint stuff, but paint it properly. This ought to be terrible. So, my Jeep has lots of rust and other things, and I've, put some paint on surfaces before, and obviously you can tell there's a big difference in color there. This is a nice light gray, this is a more darker gray. So, I finally bit the bullet and looked up actual factory paint. Now, usually there's a sticker on the door jamb that'll tell you your paint code, and then you can just search it and go, oh, look at all these paint codes. Look at all my paint. Well, what happens when your fucking sticker doesn't work? And you have to buy a couple different paint colors until you find the one that actually is your vehicle. If you can, try and download, or if you have to, buy a color chip for your year. So, for instance, all Jeeps in 1989 used the same color palette, except for Wranglers. They had a special color choice. But I just downloaded the 1989 color chips and found out that the gray that I have is Dover gray. Or this number here, possibly, DT1662. Unless that's their custom number. But, yeah, it definitely wasn't sterling silver. I found that out the hard way, so I'd order another one. So, Dover Gray is the color that we need. The first time I ordered from Touch Up Direct, that got here nice and fast, and, it seemed like it did the job. But the second time around, I had to order from Scratch Wizards for the color that I needed. So, the area that I want to focus on is this down here. It was very rusty. So the first thing I did was took a wire wheel on a grinder and grinded all the loose paint off, and I kept chipping all this stuff until I could find the bare, metal. That way I knew that I got all the rust out of the way. And then I put some rust converter on it and let that sit for a couple days so it got nice and, converted. Then I sanded it all over. So I'm not going to do a professional job. I just want, the color to look right. So we're going to hit it with some primer. Then we're going to hit it with our paint. Then we're going to hit it with some clear coat. Okay. Primer's been applied. I did 2 light coats a couple minutes apart. It says that the primer can be top coated immediately, so I'm just going to let it set up for a couple minutes, wait for these dogs to stop barking, and then we'll apply the real stuff. First light coat was applied. I just went over it real nice. I didn't totally cover everything, but what I did was feathered it real gently at the top, so just a little bit so that it blended, so it's not just a nice cut line. And already, it's not dry yet, but I can't even tell that it was painted right now. It actually blends really well, so I'm excited that this paint color matches. So we'll let that dry a little bit, and then we'll apply some more coats. So this is the finish that we're looking at with the clear coat. You do 1 light coat, wait a little bit, and then do a heavier coat. So, I don't know, it looks a little more sparkly than the original paint, but the color's close enough that I can't really complain. I'm not trying to make a show quality finish here, but I just want it to look not so frickin' obvious when you're staring at the vehicle. So, let's move on to this edge right here since it's got all messed up. I put some paint on it before, but it's just some simple enamel. So, I took a wire wheel, like this, and you go to town and get all the junk off and try to get the rust out as much as possible so there's no more rust. So now, since there's bare metal, I'm going to be using some dupli-color self-etching primer. And the newer cans look a little different. They look like this. Same shit though. I also had some sanding blocks and pads and other stuff, so I sanded it, wiped it down with some MEK to get all the junk off, and then you spray. So I've applied the self-etch. Let it sit for half an hour to dry up. Sanded it a little bit and cleaned everything up with some more MEK. So I'm going to do a quick coat of primer, and then same step as down here. Should get a pretty decent look. Okay, got our primer set, so we're just going to let that sit for a couple minutes until it doesn't look so shiny. And then we're going to apply our top coat. Okay, apply our top coat, I guess? I applied the color. So, there we go. I just did a couple different patterns. I went left and right for a little bit, and then I went back and forth like this. Then I got the edges and kind of kept spraying out a little bit as I did it, and then did one more. And you're kind of just trying to feather it so that it blends in, so there's not a real harsh line. I didn't do a great job, but I don't care that much. So then we let this dry for 5 to 10 minutes, and then we put some clear on. Okay, so our clear coat's been applied. You can see the shininess of where it is. So they said it would apply 2 to 3 light coats 10 to 15 minutes apart. Let it dry, you should be good. So we'll let that dry. We'll take a look at it in the daytime and you can get a better visualization. Then we can put it back on the vehicle. Alright, so I got the fender hung again and the door painted. You can obviously tell on the camera pretty well where the paint was. Now one of those lines is a shadow, but you know, for overall, not terrible. Not great, but not terrible. Sparkly metallic silvers are always difficult to match, same with like really nice whites, but whatever. It's better than, you know, those really big light gray spots, you know, it doesn't stick out like that. You know, you wouldn't really notice it unless you really looked, and hell, once I take it through the woods a couple times, get the paint scratched, it should blend right in. So, you know, what are you gonna do? I didn't go to a body shop and spend lots of money on getting really nice fancy matched paint. I spent 20 bucks on a can, and, well, meh. It's a Jeep. So I'll show you around all the other parts I did. It looked a hell of a lot better than it did. Ain't perfect, but I'm happy with it. Same here. It's almost hard to tell, which I guess is a good thing, right? Got a little section there. Got a little section here. Got a bigger section here. Cool. I'm pretty happy with it. It looks a lot better than it did, you know, compared to something like this. So, it ain't professional, but it's good enough for me. So, like I was talking earlier about those color chips, it's not easy to match factory paint, especially on vehicles that are really old, because with scratches and sunlight and everything, it starts to fade. So after a while, your original color is not the original color anymore. So here's the sheet that I downloaded. I just found this off eBay, someone that was selling the color chips. And this is going to depend on your printer, on how accurate the colors look. But if you notice, all the exterior colors on the right are for every 89 Jeep, and on the left, if you have a Wrangler, they're a little different. And it even tells you the base options and everything, which is neat. But just search your Jeep and see if you can't find some color chips or anything like that. So if you notice, the first one I picked was sterling silver. That was before I decided to actually look at some color chips. And that was a big mistake. As you can see, it's pretty spot on. Sterling silver. Not anywhere close to what I needed. I needed Dover gray. So, now you can kind of see what kind of colors you might need based on color chips. Now, something interesting. If you look right here underneath this trim panel, this is like the original factory paint color here. It's been hidden its entire life, nice and clean and shiny. So you can see that it's darker than what's been sitting out for a while. So if I go over to the paint that I bought, it's got about the same darkness as stock, but it doesn't quite match the older faded paint because it just looks lighter and everything. So it's just interesting to see how it's really hard to match paint. So that's why I don't care if it's perfect, because it is a Jeep, not a sports car. If you want it to be perfect, take it to a body shop. If you want to save a lot of time, do it yourself, buy a $20 can of paint.